Okay, to continue on. So we stopped at some of the newly formed B cells become antibody secreting plasma cells. So you're filling in antibody secreting plasma cells. So we talked about that when the B cells were activated, that was what they do, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a sec. The antibodies then will, so antibodies combine with antigen-bearing agents, thus helping to destroy them. So a couple notes on the side I'd like you to add is, so this basic concept is two cells have to recognize the pathogen. So we need to have a B cell that's been activated and has recognized the pathogen, and a T cell that's been activated and recognized the pathogen. And then the two of them come together and create this huge immune response. Kind of going back up to where I want you to add called the major histocompatibility complex is back up at number 3. So where the antigens from the digested antigen-bearing agent are displayed on the surface membrane of the accessory cells. So the cell is taking those antigens, putting them on its membrane. That's called the major histocompatibility complex, or the MHC. Histocompatibility. So tissue recognition, basically, right? So it's showing off its badges, and that's what actually does the stimulation. So looking at that in a picture form, that's not the one I want. Just a second. All right, there we go. So if we kind of look at it all together, we see, so this antigen's floating around in the tissues. Here's our antigen, or our pathogen with antigens on its surface. So our B cell that recognizes that pathogen, and we saw this picture a little earlier, is going to dock with that antigen, get this antigen receptor combo going on. At the same time, there's enough of this pathogen in the body with its antigens on its surface that a macrophage is going to take in one of them, and so it phagocytizes it, digests it, and displays its antigen on its surface. And then T cells are going to come along and read that information off of our macrophage. So we have our cytotoxic T cells, and we have our helper T cells. And those are going to have slightly different jobs. Our cytotoxic T cells will basically create or release these different toxins, and they release interleukin, which will actually activate the cytotoxic T cells to function. The helper T cells are going to release the cytokines, and we're going to help to activate that B cell. And so it's all just working together, proliferating, so we get lots and lots of these immune cells that occur because they've all recognized this pathogen. They see it as a foreign particle or foreign body, and an immune response is triggered. So, and the immune response is your body's reaction to all of these different pathogens too. So remember, some of these different things, the interleukins and the cytokines, make you feel sick. And so that's a lot of what causes the illness. But the illness is, the body fighting off that particular pathogen. All right, so turning to our last page. See if I can do this in a minute or two. Couple minutes. So looking at immune responses. So a primary immune response is really what we've been talking about this whole time. So it's when B cells or T cells become activated after first encountering the antigens for which they are specialized to react. So this is the first time your B cell sees that particular antigen that it was made to attack, the first time the T cell sees it, so you get sick. So that whole process, plasma cells are formed, release antibodies into the lymph, and the antigen-bearing agents are destroyed. So that's a primary immune response. So that's the first time you get sick, right? So it's activating those cells. They come up from the green room and do their job. Okay? A secondary immune response follows a primary immune response. So this is when some of the B cells are left behind and they become memory cells. And their job is that they will respond quickly to an antigen if it then enters the body. Let's say quickly to that same antigen. So this is why, when your family gets the flu, like maybe you started it and you gave it to the rest of your family and they get it and they get sick and feel yucky, you don't pick it up from them again because you have these immune cells hanging out behind. And even if, you picked up that cup that your brother drank out of and some viruses left there, your body will attack that virus quickly, immediately, and get rid of it, and you don't get sick again from that same virus. Okay, this brings us to our last little bit of immunity. So looking at types of specific immunities. Remember we talked about non-specific immunity earlier. So these are just the specific immunity concepts. So we have naturally acquired active immunity. And this is when a person is exposed to a live virus or pathogen. Develops the disease. And becomes resistant to it. Okay, so you get sick, you get resistant to the disease. So a vaccine can be also utilized to create what's called artificially acquired active immunity. So naturally acquired is you just pick it up in the environment. Artificially acquired is it's just going to be injected into you. So a vaccine contains an antigen. So, if we're talking about viruses, it's a weakened or killed virus. And it causes the activation of B cells and T cells, but no symptoms, or sometimes mild symptoms. Sometimes when you get the flu shot, they'll say that you might feel kind of yucky for a little bit, and so you get that achy feeling. Or so, just as those are being, those T cells and B cells are activated, sometimes they trigger some of the things that make you feel sick, but usually not the big full-blown illness. So that creates artificial, you've been injected, active immunity. It's active because your body's creating the cells to attack. Then we have artificially acquired passive immunity. This would be when a person's injected with ready-made antibodies. And these would be usually separated from a person whose blood plasma, so a person maybe was sick and immune to that disease, and so they would then take the antibodies out of their blood. And then naturally acquired passive immunity is going to be it's the short-term immunity that a mother gives to her infant.